Hello, and welcome to I'm Just Saying, and it's spring. That's why the hat deal, because when Easter came in, I started thinking about hats. I couldn't even find them. So I thought you'd like to see what I used to wear when Easter came in. And Kathy Lee, I see she's got one of her hats on, is smashing. Smashing. Good morning, Kathy.
Good morning, and the springtime, and I just decided to don this lovely hat.
I love it. I mean, nobody should sit behind us with these hats on, right?
No.
I remember the day when you had to wear a hat on Easter, and of course, when you went to church. I couldn't go to church without having a hat on. In fact, I'll show you one of the hats that I used to wear to church, and this was sort of my church hat. And the one I'm taking off, well, that was the Easter hat, but this was my church hat, Kathy.
Oh, that's a nice one.
I think I got it on right. Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Looks okay to me.
I had to really go get these hats. They're all out of shape now because they were just sitting up in dust. And no one wears a hat anymore. I don't know what's going on here.
I wear a hat, Miss Trudy.
Well, you always have a hat. You're
always.
Man. And you always wear the same one?
No, I have a bunch of different hats.
Oh.
I'll wear a different hat next week. But this is my winter hat, so I'm still in a winter weather hat, you know, when it rains, snows.
Look at here's our man with all kinds of hats. And when do you wear these? Hi, Gary.
Hi. Well, how are you? I got hats behind me.
You put them on the wall, right?
Yeah, there's a piece of art because I have no hat. If I put them in hat boxes, guess what? There would be no room.
I know what happens to them.
No, not necessarily that. Where are you going to put your clothes?
Okay, I see. Well, listen, when I was coming up, you had to wear hats. Now, this hat I used to put on when I wanted to make a statement.
Oh, yeah.
Nice hat.
That looks really sexy.
I wanted to make a statement. But then when I would walk, go out at night and go to the theater, you couldn't wear those big hats like Kathy's got on there now. So I used to wear one of these little cloches.
Oh, that's nice also.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened. I just lost count of all my hats. People don't wear hats anymore.
Yeah.
But they mean different things. What does your hat mean to you, Jerome?
Well, I was coming back from a trip to Las Vegas, and I happened to be downtown, and I walked into Burlington Coat Factory, and they had this hat for $20. I tried it on. It reminded me of the hats I used to wear back in the late 50s and through the early 60s when hats went out of style after Kennedy was president. Hats went out of style.
They went out of style?
Yeah, hats for men went out of style after John F. Kennedy wore no hat to his inauguration. I mean, that's how funny it was. But I started wearing a hat again about 2005, and I've loved it. It keeps my head warm, and it creates a great profile. Gary, I like your hats, man. You got to give me some of those.
Okay. Kathy Lee looks like she's going to church. You going to church? Kathy, you going to church? Like they say, not church.
Tea afterwards. This is my tea hat.
In those days, you couldn't mess with a gal that had a hat on like that, though, Gary. You paid respect.
Oh, yeah.
And you pay. Yeah. Right? I am expensive. This tells you a hat. Actually, since we're on hats, Trudy, in our culture, they're crowns. And,
correct.
And the type of crown you wore denoted your status. Mm-hmm. And when I think about it, when we walk into a church on Sunday, it just vibrates throughout the whole place because you can actually see.
Well, I also remember when, like you said, you had to wear a hat to church. Today, you can't get hats on the hairstyle that the kids are wearing, particularly. because they have all kinds of things up on the top of their head. And I wear a lot of wigs and turbans today, more so than hats. And I remember also when we used to have dances in the club room, the community room, and the guys that wore hats would all be standing. All the guys used to wear hats and stand along the wall to decide what girl they were going to ask to dance and that kind of thing. And my mother told me, don't dance with any fella that was wearing a hat because he was a roughie.
Well, I'm glad Kathy Lee mentioned the fact that they're crowns, because that's important to know that they're really not called hats. They're your crown. So that's the real word for us. I mean, I don't know what other word and how hats came in, but we are always known, even going back to our culture, that they're crowns. So thank you, Kathy, for saying that. I don't know if anybody got that, but they're definitely crowns. Like Jerome's your crown. And where's your hat on, Miss Trudy? You're supposed to keep it on.
Oh, no,
You're supposed to keep your crown on.
You know, Miss Trudy's hair can be like a crown because she looks beautiful.
I know. She's gorgeous. So yeah.
I'm glad you remembered that point in history, Gary. You are our historian. So hats do mean different things to different races or different cultures. Mm-hmm. And it's important to know what they do mean, because today some people are still wearing hats if they come from another country particularly, and then the Muslims wear coverings for their hats. And I don't know if the Catholics are still wearing, I wasn't a Catholic, but whenever I went to a Catholic church and didn't have a hat, I would put a handkerchief or something on my head. Mm-hmm. As you say, as a crown.
Well, actually,
they're not doing it anymore.
Actually, it's separating you between you and the Creator. That's right. That's what it means. You're separating yourself from a higher being. So it has a spiritual connotation attached to it. That's why they put the napkin or whatever they do in the Catholic Church. That's why the priest has whatever he. Well, that's why the Jewish people wear the yarmulkes, and that's why every group. So it really goes into a spiritual system. So it's interesting that you picked a topic that would associate with spirituality and also with your being.
Well, the hats that we wore and had to wear to church was, of course, in respect to the Savior. Mm-hmm. So that's a very good lesson to remember. Mm-hmm. I wonder why the kids today haven't been attached to that, to church, to some kind of, I guess what they're doing with their hair is sort of the same thing, though. They're making their own hats and they wear them on top of their heads.
Mm-hmm. They're wearing baseball caps. But the thing is I never got the part about wearing your hat backwards. I still don't get it. I think you wear your hat backwards, that means your head is on backwards. That's what I used to tell them when I used to see them when I was working in the school system. I said, turn your hat around. Your head is not backwards, you know. So they do wear the hats, but they wear the baseball cap. So they're still picking up the vibe, you know, the DNA is still registering, but it's just that we don't understand that they move from a transition of the for the regular hats to something of their age group.
Yeah. Well, so much for hats. But so what do you see under your hat coming up now that we have spring and we still have COVID around?
Well, I'm interested in travel. And as a person who got the Moderna vaccine and I got both shots, I'm going to be hitting the road on somewhat regular basis and to see what else is going on in the country. You know, it's interesting. There's a debate about travel, and it's a major debate now, whether you're going to have to carry your quote unquote vaccine card or to demonstrate that you've been vaccinated. Many countries still don't want Americans to visit unless they've been vaccinated, and they still want Americans to quarantine. So it'll be interesting to see going in deeper into the spring and into the summer. A lot of people are making travel arrangements now going into May, June, and July. So we'll see what happens. The travel industry was hurt dramatically, but we'll see how this recovery goes through the rest of this year.
Well, Jerome, you can still give us reports because wherever you are, today's use of all of this equipment and everything makes it possible for you to give us reports from wherever you are.
Well, I'll be in New York, Las Vegas, Atlanta, and Fort Lauderdale within the next 6 to 8 weeks. So I'll be able to give you reports from all those different places.
Well, I hope you will. You're part of the team, you know, wherever you are.
Well, thank you.
Look at that. Kathy, you're very silent here today.
I am. I was just listening to, you know, I like to hear Gary and Jerome talk, and you talk. And sometimes it's a wise man that just listens sometimes. I just enjoyed it. I really did.
Mm-hmm.
So,
you know, I'm sorry to cut you off. You know, it's interesting that now that they're forcing people to have credential and so forth and so on, there's quite a few court cases now out for people that do not want to take the vaccine, that they're proving maybe religious reasons or any other type of reasons why they do not. And if we were to research that, we'd probably find out there's quite a few court cases going along about this travel thing. It's not a travel ban. It's just that they're making you, which I think shouldn't be, because if you choose to, for religious purposes, not to take the shot, long as you're healthy. I mean, I could say if you want to prove that you had the COVID test and you don't have the COVID, but to force somebody to take a shot, to take a plane, to spend your own money, that should be of your own choice. But they're having a few court cases on that. So the jury's still out. So, Jerome, you know, you could look into
Gary,
that.
I have looked at much of the information that you have sent, and I want to thank you because you have given me a lot of questions that I'm looking for answers. And I agree with you. There are a lot of court cases that we're not hearing about. The media is slanted to get a vaccine, get a vaccine, get a vaccine. But these vaccines, Pfizer is experimental, Moderna is experimental, Johnson & Johnson is experimental. And one of the idiosyncrasies of this experimentation is that the government has given these drug companies immunity from
being liable,
immunity from liability. So it's going to be interesting to see how this works out. I chose to do it only because I need to see a couple of important people in my life, like my 5 grandchildren who I haven't seen in about 8 or 9 months, and my 3 children that I haven't seen in about 9 months, going on a year. And I wanted to see them, and I wanted to demonstrate to them that Grandpop is taking care of business. However, I have already told my 3 daughters, do not give these to my grandchildren. Do not immunize with these fake vaccines to my grandkids, and you need to do some research yourselves before you, as grown adults, do it. But I recommend that not giving it to our children, our young children especially. And I saw where Pfizer was thinking about starting to experiment on teenagers, and I would be totally against that.
Well, one of the reasons, sorry to cut you off, one second. One of the reasons is because they said it based on the immune system. At first, they started out and saying that the younger people could not get the corona.
Yeah.
Then it popped up and said, oh, we're going to give it to babies. Now, listen, a baby comes out of the womb. When are you going to inject the baby? The baby just came out of the womb. What do you want to give a baby a shot for?
True.
Kathy?
I mean, sorry, Kathy.
I just find it fascinating just listening to Gary and Jerome, because Gary, what I'm trying to understand is, how can you say that no one should get the vaccination? Or let me rephrase that. People should be allowed to get on a plane and fly anywhere where they want to fly without being vaccinated. And what? Well, why? I'm trying to understand, why would you even, I'm just sorry. I'm just trying to process what both of you are saying. Because Jerome, you got the vaccine.
Yes.
So you could travel, but sounds like you're encouraging other people not to do it.
Well, I'm encouraging my children not to do it with my grandchildren. My children are adults. They're in their 40s. Right. So if they choose to do it, they're grown-ups. Do the research. However, listen, if you look up the definition of vaccine, you will see that Moderna and Pfizer don't qualify under the World Health Organization definition of vaccines. Right. These are experimental drugs that they're trying on people to fight this pandemic. And the problem with it is travel is heavily restricted by the government. So hence the government can come down with all kinds of edicts and say, you can't do this, you can't do that. You can't walk on the left side of the street if you're wearing a green hat. The government comes up with that kind of idiocy all the time. So in anticipation of this, I'm pushing 70 years old. I'll be 70 years old in a few months. You know, I know people who have died in their 90s, 80s, 70s, and most recently, a woman who reacted negatively to the second vaccine shot, and she died within a week after she got the second vaccine shot. So I know these drugs are experimental, and I'm just saying, hey, leave my grandkids out of it, and my children are adults, but I encourage them to do the research.
Okay. No, hold on, Trudy. I know you got to get a break. But Gary, you, to me, seems like you want to be a super spreader because you don't want to take the vaccine. So that means that you don't give a darn if you go out there and spread and continue to let this whole pandemic run this whole course, whatever it's going to do.
But I never said.
Jerome, you took the vaccine so that you could travel, and yet you're taking Gary's side. And see, I have a challenge with that because that's why I couldn't get it together before. And I'm like, what? I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Trudy.
But I'm just saying, like I said, and you didn't probably catch that part. I said if you wanted to take the corona test and prove that you had the test without taking the vaccine, then you should be allowed to travel. That's what I said.
But Gary,
now listen to this.
You can still get the COVID virus. The vaccine does not prevent you from getting the virus. It just prevents you from visiting the morgue. That's basically, that's just it.
But but you don't know how, you don't know how.
You're a super spreader. You're a super spreader.
Okay. Yeah, but listen to this. You don't know how they're killing people. You don't know. You don't know that when you go into the hospital, I'm just saying, and you go on the respirator, that if your body can't handle pure oxygen, that you're subject to dying. So you don't know also, I'm just saying, that possibly the hospital is getting additional monies for every death certificate that is labeled corona. Example, funeral homes do not get extra pay for bodies that they send someone to the house that supposedly died from corona. I'm just saying. But hospitals get extra money for bodies that a death certificate is dying from corona. So there's so many contradictions here. First, there's the thing about the youth didn't need to get vaccinated because they were young, and now the seniors need to get vaccinated because they're older. And we give it to the seniors. Let's just give it to the seniors and see what happens, because their immune system is compromised. My immune system is not compromised. I know how to go holistic. So if you want to really go holistic, then you won't have to worry about that. Because if you really, all this stuff comes from herbs. Every drug, penicillin comes from what? From an herb. Aspirin and all those others come from herbs. So when they put together a chemical and mix it together and say, here, take this shot, you don't know what's going to happen. But I understand Jerome, because he has to travel, and that's what they're requiring for him. Had he known before he was going to travel, I believe Jerome might have not taken the shot and went holistic and took in iodine or taken garlic or oregano oil with beta carotene, which kills all viruses in the body. I'm just saying.
Hold your point, everyone, and we'll be right back. Okay, it's hands up, and we're back with you. Carry on. Yeah. We're talking about the COVID test. All of us have had it, right?
Yeah.
Well, I've been tested. I've been tested 3 times, and I always came back negative.
Yes.
And I was fully prepared to do the test, like they say, test 72 hours before you travel. I was fully prepared to do that. However, because some people relatively close to me had been infected, and I had been around at least 6 people who had been infected, I decided to, now I wasn't infected, but since I was around 6 people who had been infected, I decided to go ahead and get the vaccine, even though my natural immunity might have already been enough to
I want to apologize. I want to apologize to the audience out there, but I wanted to demonstrate how Gary and Jerome's conversation are just coming, just playing off to me. And it's like you get to do what you want to do, but you're trying to tell the audience or convince the audience to do
what the government says.
No, it's like sort of like you're trying to tell them to do.
I'm just saying.
Well, it is. I'm just saying, but I just don't understand why you can do what you want to do. You don't want to take the vaccine because Jerome's taking the vaccine, so Jerome can do what he wants to do. And yet, to me, I just feel as though you are trying to tell the audience that it's just like you're adding to me like more confusion. Like, for example, penicillin doesn't come from plants of mold. It comes from a mold.
But where does the mold come from?
It doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter to me, Gary.
It does matter because everything comes from plants. How do you think they come? They just pop out of the sky? No, it has to be something that it comes from to create something else.
Are you
everything has yes, we come from the ground. So we come from the ground too. We plant, we grow up, we become who we are, we go back to the ground. Everything comes from the ground and goes back to the ground. I mean, it's only like, just think about it, and that's why you have to think. Now, I'm telling people, I'm just saying, but they have time to research. They have a better chance of researching it than those that have taken the shot because they felt uncomfortable because of all of this media blitz about go get the shot, 100 days, this and that. Why should you fear? Fear breaks down your immune system. I'm just saying, for those that are fearful, their immune system is being compromised every day that they're fearful of this projection of what they're telling us to do. Why are they telling us to do it in the first place?
But
have they approved to us that there's no deaths from this vaccine? No. So Jerome just stated one. How about the others that they haven't even talked about?
Well, in the media, there are over 1,000 deaths of people who responded to this vaccine. I know an older woman who got the second shot, and she died like 8 days later. So,
well, if she was okay, but here's the thing.
I understand what you're saying.
Fear. Gary said fear. And yet, to me, both of you that's exactly what you were doing. You are spreading fear. You are putting fear into the people.
So that means the government is worse because they're putting more fear into you by telling you to take the shot. So
the government is not on, I'm just saying, the government's not on Trudy's show with us.
It doesn't matter. I'm just saying that
it doesn't matter that you both are spreading fear, and yet you're both doing what you want to do.
But where's the fear
originally? And you're doing it the way you want to do it.
Where's the fear originally starting from?
Well, I'm not talking about where it's starting from. I'm talking about
have to go to the root.
Saying.
Everything
I don't.
Everything has a root. Everything has a root. Whatever it is, everything has a root. And so out of that root grows whatever it happens, right? So if we base ourselves on not being fearful and forcing ourselves to take the shot instead of being unfearful and researching, then maybe there's no fear. So
why won't you take the shot? Are you afraid, Gary? Because I feel your fear more than anything else.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I'm smart enough to know that I don't need to take the shot.
Well, we're coming up on about 5 minutes left, and I just want to just make one last point. I'm just saying, it's that there are two different sides to this: the pro-shot and the anti-shot.
Right.
And I looked at the anti-shot, and I have two doctors. My urologist is an anti-shot doctor, and I talked to these people extensively, and I said, well, because of my exposure in my family, I'm going to visit my 3 kids, my 5 grandkids, my ex-wife, her family, and 3 of them had the COVID. So I'm saying I'm going to take a chance, interact with people, and I'm just going to do it. But there's really some big questions. The primary question I have is, if these things are so good, why did the government give the drug companies? Now, remember that manufactured drugs are the most profitable business in the world. They gave these drug companies immunity from liability. So it's like, hey, you know, there's already close to 1,000 deaths of people reacting to the immunization. Now, 1,000 out of the tens of millions who've been inoculated, supposedly, the numbers, if you're a statistician, it says the statistics indicate that it's working, even though you do have over 1,000 deaths.
Okay, Gary, wrap it up.
Well, also, what is the fact that why, if people have weakened immune system, poor health, poor diet, why don't they just give them the right proper foods to eat to build their immune systems, to keep themselves healthy, to keep the obesity, to keep the diabetes, and then maybe they'll be more healthier and they won't have to worry about getting or contracting this so-called, which started out as corona, now it's a code name, COVID-19. I'm just saying.
Okay, Kathy, you and I will all be right back. Well, folks, we'd like to continue this, but we're out of time. I tell you what, you just join us on social media if you want to hear the rest of this I'm Just Saying. In the meantime, I'm Just Saying we'll be back next week, and we'll have another subject for you. Don't go away, and thank you.